I've had feedback from people working for public companies and,
Yeah.
some of them S&P 500 companies that are saying like, look, bits and pieces of this tool, we were quoted $250,000, $500,000 and 6 to 12 months of
Wow.
production by a team of 20, 30 engineers. And you built it yourself in 2 weeks, right? So to me, it's like,
Wow.
it's been about 2 months, 2.5 months since we
Yeah.
started the whole project. I would say by the end of it, it's definitely going to cost more than in the old world, more than $1 million to
Yeah.
produce. I estimate spending that I'm going to spend less than $5,000 in Lovable.
Hi, Lazar. Welcome to Drag and Drop. It's a pleasure to have you.
Likewise, pleasure to be here, man.
I've been following you for a while, on LinkedIn, seeing, you sharing your experience and your journey. So I thought it'd be great to speak to you, dive a bit deeper into how your life has evolved in the last few years, right? And kind of see how others might be able to do maybe something similar, find some inspiration from the things you're doing. But, for those who may not know anything about you, it'd be great to start with a bit of a introduction, bit about you, bit about your background.
Yeah, definitely. So today I sort of have the role of a professional vibe coder at Lovable. I joined the company actually exactly a year ago. My anniversary is going to be this weekend. So
Amazing. Congratulations.
Happy first decade, as we call it. Because time in AI is compressing, right? I've probably done as much as 10 years as I did in the last 12 months. And I come from a non-technical background. So I am an engineer, but I am a forestry engineer by original background. I've done so many different things in life, from building small companies to even driving semi trucks. Like, I've done so many different things for a living.
Yeah.
But before joining Lovable, I was just a VP of business operations for a startup company. Been around startups for a while and kind of never got a chance to learn how to code in my life. But I was from day one, like when AI kind of in ChatGPT, I think with the Model 3 came out in December 2022, kind of got really immersed into it. And I think I saw very early on that coding is probably going to be one of those things that AI is going to be pretty good at. So I was just like tracking the space, looking at new apps that are getting released. And one morning saw an app called GPT Engineer, which was Lovable before Lovable, signed up to get on the wait list, got called by their team and onboarded to the beta version of it, which was very difficult for me to grasp. But even then, I was able to kind of get the aha moment almost immediately, because I've never thought up until that point that I think maybe I just built one random website in my life. And in an afternoon, I was able to build a mini prototype app, and I was just blown away. So I just got hooked and immersed, and it's been like that ever since. Now I spend my mornings and nights and everything in between in Lovable, building apps, both for our internal team. I right now sit and work within our go-to-market team, so our sales team for enterprises and business customers. So I build a lot of our internal tooling, but I also, as a result, work with a lot of external customers. So I will be a little bit of a deployed role, helping them build, tell them, give them best practices on how they should be building their own projects and things like that.
Yeah. Looking back, if we rewinded 3 years ago and I told you you'd be building software for one of the fastest growing AI companies in the world, what would you have said at that time?
Probably wouldn't place a bet myself on this one. You know what I mean? Even honestly, even a year and a half ago, even when I was doing it, thinking as far as I'm actually going to do this for a living, and I'm going to do it at Lovable, which is the absolute leading kind of a business intelligence generation platform, so to speak, which Lovable technically is today, because it's definitely not just a website builder, since you can do so much more. I would definitely not consider that to be a possibility, but it just happened, right? And I know today we're probably going to chat a little bit about that journey and the ingredients that made it all possible. But 3 years ago, I mean, as I said, even a year and a half ago, I would have said, nah, no way. I'm probably just going to build some mini apps. I'm going to have fun, and that's about it. So, yeah.
Yeah. And, like you mentioned, your background, you did a various number of things, with these, with AI and all technology and, low code, no code, all these things that are evolving, there's so many other skills that come with that. And I'm interested to know from your previous life, what skills from that world has, unexpectedly really become a big advantage for your day to day now?
Yeah, definitely. So I think skills that dominate today that are making you useful and really make you stand out on the market and be good at this are probably things like developing good judgment and better design taste, optimizing workflows, having like a system type of mindset, right? So not necessarily knowing how to code or knowing anything about software architecture, even though I kind of learned as a consequence of
Yeah.
just being in a startup world, you have to, because as I said in my intro, like I was a VP of business operations. So I was overseeing product and engineering in that role. Therefore, I had to understand a little bit of how their day goes and what that entails. So I think as the time went by moving between these different departments and roles, I was just accidentally, I guess, able to acquire so many generalist skills. And I think generalists are probably the winners of the AI space because like you can think in diverse, systematic ways. You see how the big picture ties together, and the missing pieces and the gaps are now filled with AI. Right. So you're leveraging AI to fill in the gaps, not lead the conversation, right? You're still the leader. You're the person closest to the problem, right? Because like when you think about it, in any role that I had or you had or anybody else had, you were always an owner of an outcome, right? You owned whatever the outcome should be, but you couldn't own the entire process of getting there. Now with Lovable specifically, right, and with AI in general, you can finally own that missing piece too, meaning that you get to build towards that outcome that you own, right? So I think really mostly what helped and what will continue to hopefully help me is again decent amount of judgment that's based off of the experience and the fact that like I used to do social media, I did marketing, I did customer success, I did everything while I was kind of going up the, I don't want to say corporate ladder, but like up the ladder of the job force to reach that level of VP. So I saw everything in the process along the way, and the missing piece that would tie it all together was usually either coding or something technical, setting something up that would require specific skill set and knowledge that is like very easily, I feel, replaceable now or supplemented with AI.
Yeah. And you touched on, obviously you started with experimenting. You're coming up to your 1 year anniversary with Lovable, and in my experience, usually people who start working with a product, the time frame of if their goal is to work for that company is a lot longer, right? Where yours is quite short from experimentation to joining Lovable, as the first vibe coder, right? So, it'd be interesting to know, what accelerated that journey? What did you do that kind of made that happen?
I would say, but I think number one thing I'll say is probably building in public, because that's what I was doing. Like even though I'm not a person that's actually that happy to be on camera and to do these things, like this is not my forte. Like for some reason, something was telling me that, okay, this is going to be really groundbreaking, revolutionary thing. And even though I don't know much about it, whatever I do know, I kind of want to share it. I think it was a little bit of that feeling of, I wish somebody did this for me. Cause like there's a Lazar out there that's like sitting and thinking, oh, I wish I knew how to do this, not knowing that they actually can. So I wanted to do my fair share of knowledge sharing. And I always kind of thought, even before AI, that like in the end, all knowledge will be one way or the other commoditized. So I didn't have that problem of like, oh, I figured something out. Let me now put it under a paywall. Let me try to monetize it. Like I was really just like, I literally do something in the morning. In the afternoon, there's a YouTube video on it. So like, I was just really not afraid to just share everything that I learned, everything that I don't know, which I think a lot of people sometimes have fear to do. And then to be fair, like with anything in life, timing and luck, right? But it's luck through motion. It's just that it didn't fall out of the sky. Like I spent every morning before work, lots of evenings, and pretty much every weekend for about a year before I joined Lovable, building in Lovable. So I was doing this before I got hired, right? And that was my whole pitch when the team, when Elena specifically, who's leading growth at Lovable, reached out to me, and then later Anton, when I spoke with them, I told them as well, like, hire me or not, I'll still do this. Like it's not a job that you need to hand to me. Like I will still do it. Obviously, in my full-time job, I couldn't do it as much as I do today. But every minute that I could, I was just doing it, right? And I'll acknowledge that I'm quite lucky personally, like with the fact that everything that happened. But I'll also say, because today's my 1-year anniversary, I pulled up some stats. In just 12 months alone, I sent over 36,000 messages to Lovable. So it's a little bit of luck, but it's also a little bit of hard work. That's 100 messages a day on average. So it's like, I spend, and I think I have like 197 days without a day or a break working in Lovable. Like, so weekends included, holidays included. So like, again, it's luck, but it's also a little bit of hard work too. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Hard work and commitment as well. And like you touched on, I think what's great with what you've done is obviously, if, like you said earlier on, you couldn't have seen yourself in this position even a year and a half ago, right? So you learning this platform, sharing that knowledge with probably other people who were like you a year and a half ago, thinking, oh, is this ever possible? So I think there's such a big market of people out there who want to build things, but they just don't know how to. And then if there's someone like yourself who, yes, is uncomfortable to do things on camera, but just pushes themselves to do it, it helps motivate, it's kind of carry it forward, right? Hopefully someone else will then do that. And that's how communities tend to grow long term.
Yeah, I agree.
And, vibe coding engineer, that role didn't exist a few years ago. A lot of people didn't know, like no one had heard of that title, So, for anyone out there, can you kind of explain what does a vibe coding engineer actually do?
So first of all, right, I think that my job title does me a little bit of a disservice nowadays, right? I'm going to even ask the guys at the company whether we can get it updated, because I feel that what I do is what you would call and what I would call way past vibes, right? Today, my job is mostly building very mission critical, load bearing software. And in my case, again, for internal and external users with real data, real money, real connectors, emails, databases, AI functionality, right? I'm not going to say that what I do is equal to what a software engineer would always do. But I also, like a year ago, I would shy away from the word engineer, because I really didn't feel like I was doing the thing that they do. But quite honestly, it's getting very similar to that, right? I know what engineers at Lovable do, and I know what I'm doing. And it's really like the differences were here. Now we're getting very close to each other. Obviously, they do a lot of infrastructure work. They do a lot of the things that luckily somebody like me using Lovable never has to think about. Because Lovable removes that away, luckily, so that I don't have to, even think about uptime or security or things like that. Because I know that in the background, the platform that I'm using is taking care of me, right? But, even though I did have to sort of upskill to get to where I'm at, right? It's also pretty crazy how, again, because I'm reflecting a lot because I joined exactly a year ago. So I remember my first project that I was building and how far Lovable has gone since then. Like in the sense that everything that I needed to learn in order to build something that I can just build today, it will just work, right? So today, a job of vibe coding engineer, if we want to call it that way, still is really mostly a solo founder that runs multiple ventures, has users, gets feedback, implements that feedback. Apps are running, people are signing up. I'm sharing my learning on social media. Like honestly, I'm totally starting to feel more comfortable comparing myself to someone like Peter Levels, Mark Liu, whatever, like people that are well-known solo founders that are just building stuff and just sharing along the way. And when you look at their vlogs, they have bugs, they have problems, right? They fix it. So to me, that's not that much different from what I do these days. So as I said, for me, the word vibe is sort of starting to fade away, if I'm honest. And it's just going to be something else, definitely, because I think we're way past that.
Yeah. And I think, there's this whole old school mentality of a software engineer, someone who writes code, right? But I think things have evolved in no matter how you build it, you're both producing outcomes, right? You're both producing something it doesn't matter how it's done. You're both doing it in different ways, but it is giving an outcome to internal, external users, whatever it's for, mission critical. So I think it shouldn't be in its own little box and kind of separate from what that traditional coder looks like, right? And I think that's the old school mentality of everyone needs to be in a separate box because I learned writing code. I'm old school. I'm a proper software developer, when it's all about what you're producing and not how you're producing.
I agree. Yeah. And lines are getting blurred. And then
Yeah.
I also think I read this on LinkedIn actually yesterday, where like Alex Lieberman, who used to lead Morning Brew, he has another company, doesn't matter. Like, so he's hiring folks and he's talking about, hey, we need jack of some trades, not one or more, but we need people that are like, that understand that the future is not in being in a box, as you said, but like, we need folks that write code and do content and understand good copywriting and like, so I feel, again, as these lines get blurred, engineers are hopefully also, since they now also spend less time coding, going to have more time to develop some of these sort of social marketing distribution skills, which are super important. So then it would be a disservice to tell someone like that, you're just a software engineer. I don't see it that way, because it's not fair. Like they're doing and they're capable of doing so much more, but so are we, whatever you want to call people like me. Even though we're not engineers, I'm relying on, software architecture principles.
Yeah.
I'm leveraging AI, sure. And yes, I cannot review my code as critically, but I can use multiple models. I can use multiple different sorts of information to do that for me. And I honestly feel like, again, that part is, because it's so mathematical and predictive, it's mostly solved, and like that the focus should probably be, or starting to go elsewhere, and thinking more in terms of, again, building businesses, growing businesses, running them, right? That's where I feel Lovable is headed, and where it excels and is going to excel in the future. And that's the future that I'm very passionate about personally.
Yeah. And, you mentioned that, obviously, even from a year ago, the things you could build in the platform compared to now, it's evolving, right? So, what surprised you most about the kind of, the kinds of tools that makes it possible today that just weren't practical for you before?
Yeah. I mean, it's everything really. Like I mentioned a couple of examples. Let's touch upon a database. Like a year ago, Lovable did not have native cloud. So you kind of had to create a separate account, connect an external database of your own, then kind of configure it. You have to kind of thread carefully, because these systems were talking, but not necessarily the way they do today. Today, I'm able to connect that database. And by the way, again, I can speak only in regards to Lovable, but Lovable supports 140 connectors off the bat, off the shelf, where it's just like, I want to connect to HubSpot. I want to connect to Salesforce. Bam, it's connected, right? One click, one prompt, and you're in, right? You're in your CRM, you're in your database. And then on top of it all, as of recently, when your app is done, if you're like, I want my users to interact with my app, not just from the user interface, but elsewhere, like maybe through a chatbot, 2 clicks and your app becomes an MCP. I mean, I didn't know what MCP was 6-7 months ago. Now I build them literally in, I want this to be an MCP that does this and does that, like natural language. I publish it and I give you the link, and you interact with my app through Claude or through ChatGPT. I mean, to me, that's just absolutely insane. I can't even imagine, because again, I don't have that engineering background, how much experience, effort, knowledge was required just for that final piece, meaning building that MCP, building an API. Like I know from past places where I worked, like that was never even a part of discussion. Like why it was so complex that you wouldn't even want to think about putting something like that on your roadmap. Whereas now, again, I'm literally one prompt away. So it's just insane. And I have no idea like how much crazier things can get when I just take a look at the last 6 to 12 months. I mean, we'll see models are getting better at a crazy rate.
Yeah.
They're getting cheaper. So it's like doing these things is not just fast, it's just becoming more and more affordable too. So yeah. It's kind of insane.
Yeah. And, that ties in great to my next question, because obviously, and there might be this one, where do you see these moments where, AI is generating this value, and, does it make you generally think, software development has just fundamentally changed?
I kind of get to witness that daily working at Lovable, right? I see, first of all, how our engineers are working, and like, just even though I don't know exactly everything that they would do, I can see how their day to day is changing dramatically, and how much more productive they are, how much faster we can move as an organization. I see that based off of our change log. Like that's probably the best representation of it. Just looking, the depth of features and the speed combined are just absolutely insane. For me, if I speak on my personal behalf, on like when did I feel software development has fundamentally changed, that was definitely that aha moment of building my first app. Like I just typed something in and something came out and I was like, how is this? I didn't understand what happened, right? Because I was like, is this now just like an image? Does this really work? Like I just couldn't grasp that something that I know, people will go to school for and you had to be very, very well educated and trained to do. Yeah. Now, someone like me can just go in and if they can articulate their thoughts properly, they can get the same or similar outcome, right? I'm not going to say it's the same. Obviously, people will talk about spaghetti code and AI slop and whatever. But like in the end, the way I think about it is you defined it perfectly. The only thing that I care and the end user cares is the outcome, right? Yeah. If the outcome is there, I mean, I've achieved what I wanted, right? Now, granted, again, there are so many things that people can say, well, what about this and what about that? And that's, again, what I really genuinely loved with Lovable before I joined the company, because like all of those what abouts are kind of taken away from me to think about. The platform is set up to protect me from not publishing my API keys or not, opening up private information by inputting authentication for users in a single prompt. So the convenience of it helps me only focus on what really matters. And in the end, what really matters is, am I getting users? Are they happy? Do they get what they want out of this application? If they give me feedback, that's where that judgment comes to play. Like if 100 people tells me to do 100 different things, well, how do I prioritize this? What really matters? What's really moving the needle for the next 100 and the next 100, right? So I'm happy that that's my focus and not syntax, not should I refactor this file because XYZ, I may need it later as I scale. If you need it later as you scale, you can always ask the tool to do it, right? It's never going to be too late. You can clean up stuff. So I think that's where I realized that it fundamentally changed the game because I feel that in the past, because the opportunity cost was so high, you had to nail it. You had to write clean code. You had to do things in a certain way, not because you're educated to do so, but because you knew that if you make that mistake, going backwards is going to cost you 6 to 12 months. Whereas now it's 6 to 12 prompts. So I could refactor my entire code base in 2 hours. So that's why I don't stress too much about that piece, right? And I could be wrong, and I'm wrong about many things, and totally fine if anybody feels that after they hear the statement say, oh, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. But like, again, I just see it from a bit of a different lens. I look at it from purely an outcomes perspective.
Yeah. And your instinct now is to build rather than search, right? Search for software. So how did you develop that mindset and what habits helped you kind of make that shift?
Yeah, so I think it just comes with the territory, really. Now, when you look at it, I have this kind of a mantra, my flywheel that I think about, which is the more I build, the more I know, the more I know, the more I build, right? So it's kind of like self-enforcing thing that just happened, even though I'll tell you, like 5 or 6 years ago, our discussion would be completely different. I was very skeptical of that notion of like, we should build something internally because like massive opportunity cost. We could be doing something else when we can just buy stuff. Like I would always take into the account of like salaries of people. Like if I have 10 engineers working on something for a year, I mean, that's a lot of money, right? Yeah. Now I feel like one person can probably do it 10 times faster. So we're at 100x productivity. So now you get to this place where I'm at, which is, okay, when I try to make a decision to buy versus build, the reason why I always go with the build is because most software solutions I test want me to pay 100% of the price when I only need 10% of the features, right? So there's a mismatch there all the time. Every software I use, I literally need 3 screens and they have 5,500 of them, right? So I'll usually say, okay, I'm gonna build this on my own. Now that said, I will say this too, right? Not to go crazy and now on a tangent to say that a 10,000 people organization should replace all of their systems of record with Lovable. No, definitely not, right? So like there are apps that are like, should be standalone. You can use global cloud, whatever, like you just use our entire infrastructure. But I'm also a very big fan, and this is how I use Lovable in all transparency, where like when I'm building something very big, I maintain our own systems of record, right? And I use Lovable to build a system of engagement on top, right? So for instance, if I need something that will summarize the way people use Lovable or whatever, I won't like get all the Lovable users in my database. Makes no sense. We already have that in our data warehouse. I will use connectors. As I said, now I'm like one prompt away to make it whichever way I want. And then I'm just building the layer on top that allows me to engage from there. So if I get the data ingested, for example, if I get some level of intelligence ingested in my app, then I get to decide what I do with it. Do I email these people? Do I do a different type of campaign, right? That's the type of stuff that I would build. And again, rather than buying them.
Yeah, yeah. And, with everything you're building, is there something specifically that you've built internal or internally, and when you're building, is this, it just kind of your thought process around, okay, you know what, this couple of years ago just wouldn't have been possible, and can you kind of talk me through what that was and what made it different?
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty that come to mind, but like obviously the freshest is the one that I'm building right now. So I'm basically building like a tool we are internally calling Catalyst, and it's like basically something that is going to be used by entire go-to-market part of the organization. It is absolutely massive. I mean, and I've had feedback from people that have used it that, come from backgrounds of working for public companies and some of them S&P 500 companies that are saying like, look, bits and pieces of this tool, we were quoted $250,000, $500,000 and 6 to 12 months of production by a team of 20, 30 engineers. And you built it yourself in 2 weeks, right? So it's to me, it's like, it's been about 2 months, 2.5 months since we started the whole project. Now there's so many pieces of it, like all our account executives, customer success, and other members of the team are using it actively, concurrently. We're pulling in so many data points. It can do so many things. You can call, you can email, you can build lists, you can do whatever you want. Like it's a replacement of so many different things. I would say by the end of it, it's definitely going to cost more than in the old world, more than $1 million to produce. I estimate spending that I'm going to spend less than $5,000.
Wow.
Which is insane, right? So like, I mean, just the value of it is insane. Not to mention the time, not to mention like, time to market and everything, not to mention how easy it is to maintain it later, in the sense that like one of the big things with buy versus build is also that, let's say you decide to buy the tool, but it's missing that one feature that would make it so good for you. If you submit it to the development team of that company, at best case, you're going to see it a year from now. I just got feedback this morning. I woke up, got up. Somebody in London in our company gave me feedback. By 7 a.m., they had it in production. That's it. Right. So like, that's just like what blows my mind on a daily basis. But like, again, if I talk about external examples, right, it's not just like, because I think a lot of people, when I would talk about this, they'd be like, okay, well, you have that privileged access. You work at Lovable, you know what's possible, unlimited credits, blah, blah, blah. But then you have examples like Klar from Sweden, like a very small group, 3 founders, built an educational company, started generating $130,000 in ARR, all built in Lovable, right? Or Viver DIA, it's basically a Brazilian AI education company founded by Rafael Milagre. And again, they're generating millions of dollars on teaching and educating people about AI and everything else. So like building scalable software and building scalable businesses is definitely something that for these subset of founders and people like me was never possible a couple of years ago. And now it simply is a reality. And not just a reality, but like operationally, it doesn't take that much time either, right? When you think about it.
Yeah. That's insane. It's crazy. And, you've worked across, templates for new users, developer, education, enterprise tools, and internal operations as well. What has surprised you most about how people are actually adopting AI once they get access to it?
I mean, for me, I guess that surprise moment isn't as high and as fresh as seeing them getting surprised by, the capabilities of the tool. As someone who's like a generalist at a company or a person that's closer to the problem, now they have an unfair advantage on the market all of a sudden, right? Because like they've known the problem so intimately for so long, and the amount of surprise that they get when they see, oh my God, these are all the things that now I can do now, right? So I think for me, the surprise factor probably again happened a couple of years ago, but the bigger surprise comes for those people that see it for the first time, right? When they get access to it, when they get that aha moment, when they get kind of AI pilled, so to speak, is kind of what both inspires me, but I also, as I said, I'm not that surprised because like I always say, like I envy the person that's gonna watch our podcast and be like, let me try this Lovable thing. Like that feeling never, like you can never replace that feeling, right? So like I think, and especially these days, again, when I tried it was difficult. Like, even though I love the team, obviously they were like team of 5 when I joined as a user.
Start early days,
it was like so hard. Like it worked, but you had to really pull the muscles. Now it's like I literally for most people when they ask me what should I do, it's two just start and just ask. That's it. Like you go, you brain dump into the tool. When you get stuck, just ask it how to get unstuck. Be like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not technical. I just have this idea. Help me. And it just works, right? So that's, to me, I think that's the surprise that I have, like how quickly we came to that. Maybe if you ask me for a personal surprise factor, that would be the one, which is like when I tested it, when I worked on it, I was like, oh, we got solid 10 years before this is like, at this level. And we're like I'm 2 years in because coincidentally I created my my Lovable account exactly 2 years ago. So like 2 years ago, I created the account. A year ago, I got hired. So let's see what happens next year.
Yeah. And it ties back to what you said, even though it's 1 year, the way things are moving, it's like a 10-year anniversary because so much has happened in between, which in the old days, it would take about 10 years for things to evolve that much.
I would say for me personally, it would take more because like I've built so big and small, doesn't matter. But I built over 500 applications. I mean, you don't build that in a lifetime most times.
Yeah, of course.
I built about 15 or 20 that are really genuinely massive. They are humongous. They are probably the size of complexity that I had in some of my previous jobs where we would sell these apps and live off of these apps. People would buy that piece of software that we built. And I built about 10 or 15 of those. So that's a couple of careers worth of engineering that I've done literally within a year. So, it's kind of, I have no idea again how this is going to look like a year from now. Yeah.
That's amazing. And, from your experience and also working closely with the go-to-market team, as AI moves into larger organizations, what's the biggest mistakes you see companies are still making, with AI?
Yeah, I think this is kind of a multifold question. I think the first one that I'd say is probably not thinking of governance and management of the application production layer. And when I say this, I don't mean security, because when you say governance, people always think about security. I'm talking about sprawl. I'm talking about a scenario where you buy the licenses for the entire business and then you just let them build. Unfortunately, for people that don't have engineering and builder background, so to speak, this almost becomes a bit of a solo venture. So people are siloed. Number one, people are afraid to share what they're building because they're like, oh, this is my first little project. I don't want to get embarrassed. So people start building in little tiny hubs and silos, usually of 1, maybe 2 people max. So what happens is you have 45 people building the exact same thing without knowing that they're building it. Right. So that's the first mistake. The first problem is not thinking that this is exactly what's going to happen and not preemptively doing what the second problem is, which is education. Right. So the first problem is influenced by the second. And when I say education, I mean in the sense that, like, again, you buy the tool, you just hand it over to users and just say build with no objectives. We talked about objectives. So there's no business critical objective. And one thing that we at Lovable understand, for example, is that unlike some other tools on the market, not in AI coding space, but like in the SaaS space, the ROI of the tool isn't using the tool. It is in the outcome that the tool produces, right? So the ROI of Lovable isn't you going in and spending credits. It's what consumption of those credits produces for your business. So for us, for example, we don't want enterprises to make that mistakes, either 1 or 2. So number 1, we have self-service educational resources. We do Lovable 101 live sessions, Lovable 201 live sessions. We have a dedicated CSM, a customer success manager, for every account that we sign. people can reach me, and oftentimes they do. So they do like 5 coding sessions with me. I would literally, for one of a bigger enterprise customers that we have, I've even done like a one-on-one roast me for a whole week. They were just booking 30-minute slots, and I was just like roasting apps and helping people. Like, so like we know that this is gonna happen, and we are trying to prevent it because number one, we really deeply care about it, but also we understand that it's mission critical to do this. And then at scale, I think democratization is the third problem, which is like the fear of security and IT maybe being. They're very conservative on like the fact that everybody should learn how to build. So again, I think that people should build, but that not everybody should be building everything, right? I think that people should join and work as teams. But then what we do to prevent that problem, for example, is like we would organize a company-wide hackathon. So controlled space, controlled workspace. It's kind of like, it's very limited, but it gives everybody the taste of the medicine. People demo to each other. It's a very healthy way of organizations experiencing AI in a healthy way. And then when you work with onboarding account managers, you kind of have to, I think, address the problems of what I think the two buzzwords will be. So like when you think about AI space, the buzzwords were AI slop and token maxing. In Q3 and Q4, you're going to be hearing only about AI sprawl and outcome maxing, right? And we're thinking about these other two for a very long time now, right? In the sense that like, I'm not against people experimenting as long as it's in a service of an outcome, right? And in a lot of organizations, there's a lot of experimentation without that very critical piece, right? And then year comes to an end and the purchasing department says like, okay, we paid X amount of dollars for this tool. What did we produce? And the answer, unfortunately, for a lot of these businesses may be, well, we didn't produce anything meaningful because guess what? There was no plan in place to educate people how to use the tool. And there was no plan in place of democratizing and knowledge sharing, meaning that teams need to come together. And even though this could be a solo play, you should still work as a group and as a team when you're building something better.
Yeah, that's really good advice. And, when we spoke previously, you mentioned, one of the biggest questions you get from lots of people is, how do I get a job doing what you do? So, if there's someone in sales, marketing, operations, or any other kind of, skill set today, where would you tell them to start?
Exactly where they are at, right? Literally like if you're watching this and I don't know which day of the week it is, wake up the next morning and first thing you do is open up your laptop, your computer, and document all the tabs that you had to open just to do your job. That's how it should all start, which is like, okay, let me see what I'm doing first, right? Then document all the steps that you had to do manually throughout the day. Draft reports, complete certain tasks, emails, whatever. Like anything that's recurring, that's repetitive, that keeps on happening every day, right? No matter how dynamic your job is, there are certain elements of every job that are exactly the same. Then you literally go to Lovable, and you give it a list of both of these. This is all the tabs that I had open. This is all the things that I had to do. Guide me step by step using non-technical jargon, how to build something to solve for these, right? And then you iterate, you build, you hit a wall, you watch a video or ask ChatGPT or whatever, you get unblocked, then you build the thing and it works, right? And then you start using it for yourself, collect some data, and start thinking about your ROI, whether that's productivity gains, time saved, whatever. And when you are able to kind of draft a report, organize a team workshop, outsource it, give it away for free. Be like, hey, everybody in my sales team, this is what I've done. Look how cool it is. You can now do this also very easily because we just released what we called sort of Lovable app connectors. In plain English, this is what that means. You build an app for yourself using your own data, your own Gmail, your own CRM link, whatever, your own connectors. But then anyone else that logs in with their email, they're only seeing their data. They don't see your data, right? So it's they don't have to build it twice. You just democratize the tool to everyone in the org. And now everyone gets the benefit. Now, all of a sudden, your department is crushing it, right? Somebody asks what's going on, a manager, a director. If they don't, be proactive. Go out there and say, hey, this is what we did. This is how we're crushing this quarter. Give me the permission to become the AI transformation officer for the entire organization. I'll go into every team and I'll do exactly what I did. I'll ask them to document their inefficiencies, give me their friction logs. We'll come up with a tool. We'll work together. That's how we prevent AI sprawl, right? We're working together as a unit and we're building things and you just rinse and repeat this, right? I think the key bit is whoever is sitting and waiting for a job description for this, remember this space is moving so fast.
Yeah.
Hiring market cannot produce even a role name. I've told you, I don't think that I'm not a vibe coder anymore. Vibe coding, at least in Lovable terms, is over, right? We're not doing that as much as we're building real apps and real stuff, right? So it's like, I did not get hired by applying either, right? I got sort of recruited by Lovable, right? As a builder, like there wasn't an open role and 1,000 of us applied and I interviewed. There was no interview. I just got hired immediately, right? So the key bit is that you should hire yourself into the role. And I spoke about this somewhere else, and there was one woman, her name is Olga, and she works at Avon, and she listened to it. And she literally did the whole thing and then sent me a message about a month later. She was like, hey, I was like, I listened to it and I was like, I'll just try this, doing it the way he said it. Took her only 1 month. She got immediately promoted into an AI officer role, whatever. And now she does that for a living at Avon. And Avon is pretty big, like the cosmetics company. So so she obviously she was working there, I think, for, I'll say, don't quote me on this, but about 14, 15 years or something. So she had leverage as a leader there. But she wanted to do this, and like she just built a couple of things, did a workshop, educated everybody. A director saw it and he was like, this is your job now. Like, you're going to do this for a living. So again, it's definitely replicable, but you cannot wait for it to just happen for you. You have to be the one making the step.
Yeah, definitely. That's amazing advice. And, because you're surrounded by people building with AI every day, it's easy to think everyone is moving this fast, but when you step outside that bubble, how do you think, we really are?
Yeah. So I think one of the benefits of living in a small town that I am, like I'm in a small city in West Coast, Florida, is exactly that I deliberately have an opportunity on Friday afternoons and nights to get out of the bubble and hang out with people that I have no idea about this. Like, it's been 2 years since I've started vibe coding. Only one person in my network, and recently, I think he just started kind of vibe coding a little bit a month ago. Everyone else has no idea what I do. They don't understand, like they wouldn't be able to tell a difference. And their use of AI could be described as, what song is this? Or like, what should I eat tomorrow? So like people just literally Googling on ChatGPT, what I would call like just using a chatbot to ask a very basic question. So there's always those charts being shared, but like, I feel like if you've built even one application to, like, I don't know, be your mini chief of staff, reads your emails, helps you plan the day, you're already in 0.01% of the world easily, right? Because like I just genuinely feel like most people that are not technical or not from the startup space or whatever, they're not even familiar about it, or they maybe just take a glance at it and didn't understand the value proposition for them. But I think that's going to change a lot. I genuinely feel like we're entering an era where more and more people are going to, just due to the job market nature and all, and nature of it all, are going to decide that it's probably better for them to start running their businesses and building their own businesses. And tools like Lovable, again, are getting better and better, not just helping you build a website, but build an entire ecosystem around it, again, with payments, emails, and everything else. So you can genuinely manage it end to end. And I think those two worlds are going to collide. So more and more people are going to do whatever we named that. I don't know if it's going to be called vibe coding or not, but like whatever it's called, more and more people are going to do it. Yeah.
And, finally, you've completed 1 year at Lovable. What are you kind of most excited, looking forward to kind of going into year 2 and, with things moving so much for you, what are you kind of, most, interested in and excited to see or do?
A part of me still feels like it's day one, right? You're very excited and you don't know what you're doing at the same time. And I genuinely feel that every day. I think not just what I'm excited, but what I feel is kind of the next frontier and where things could be headed to is like these agents that are building stuff. They can run longer, run faster, run cheaper. So I think I'm excited about the future where we're rewarded less and less for effort, raw output, and more rewarded for good judgment. And specifically when I say good judgment, because it's kind of vague, to be more specific. you will be rewarded if you're capable of articulating outcomes clearly, right? You need to be capable of explaining how something should be done, right? Because let's say a year ago, again, let's go back then to that moment in time. Models were much less capable, so to speak. So you could only get so much done in a single request. So you had to like approach it very iteratively. You can have one little small ask at a time and that's it, which is kind of okay too when you're learning, because those micro changes, even if you make a mistake here and there, you can easily deviate and you don't lose too much. But now it's the opposite. Sure. If an agent can run for hours or days, you better know how to describe what you wanted to do for the next 5 days. Because guess what? 5 days is still 5 days, right? We are able to compress things a lot, but time is still time. And I think, I'm excited for how will humans and tools adjust to that new reality of when everything can work almost perpetually and when you can get everything done, maybe even in a single request. How do you articulate that request in a way that's going to set you up for success, right? And then at the same time, knowing that I can finish everything in one request, what am I going to do with the success of time, right? So for me personally, I'm thinking like, the building is probably not going to be my main activity, and I'm kind of excited to learn more about agent architecture, orchestration, what makes agents behave the way they behave. So probably a layer deeper, right? Because the user sees the end output and they maybe see the prompt and they maybe be able to read the agent's thinking, but I want to go beyond that. I want to see deeper, what they would call in technical term traces, where you would see all the steps that agent took and understand, can I make it smarter? Can I make it better at doing X? So that's kind of my personal ambition of really like trying to become more technical, I guess, in that sense of like, but I still don't consider it coding. It's really just agentic engineering, where you're like engineering a behavior of an agent without necessarily writing code, but just understanding how you write system prompts and how they complement each other. Because like the bread and butter of Lovable and what makes Lovable very successful as a company is that exactly. Like we are working on top of models, but that is the secret sauce. Like what makes a large language model, which is built for general intelligence, really, when you think about it, so good at doing X. And that piece in between is what I'm kind of after.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, it was a pleasure to speak to you, Lazar. Thank you for sharing, your journey, how you got there, how it's kind of evolved along the way. And, I look forward to keeping in touch. I think we should talk again, maybe in a year's time. Maybe we'll feel like 20 years then, because so much has evolved, and changed. But it'd be great to, speak again in the future, see how things have evolved in the space, but also even just for you, how much more technical you've become along the way as well. And, we're both local Floridians, so maybe we can make it happen face to face next time.
Yeah, for sure. I assume, honestly, knowing just how space is evolving, we're going to have more time on our hands. We're probably going to do less busy work. I can guarantee you that. I could be wrong about a bunch of things, but I think on this one, I'll be proven right that tools are going to just make our lives easier in that sense. So yeah, we'll probably get to spend a little bit more time connecting in person. I think that's one of the big benefits of AI. If I'm going to talk about a big benefit, because I know a lot of people think about the doom and gloom and this and that, people connecting with people is back, right? Real life events, people are excited to meet each other. When you think about it's probably even stronger than pre-COVID, and it's been over 6.5 years now since then. So it's like it's been a while since I've seen people so excited. I mean, again, I live in a very small city here in Sarasota, and there was a tech meetup, and I was like, I'll go. There's going to be like a dozen people. There were 150 people on a tech meetup, and it was like an AI tech meetup. I'm like, this is crazy. This just goes to show how people want to hang out and how many people want to talk about this topic. So very excited about that piece as well.
Amazing. Well, I appreciate you spending time with me, and I look forward to keeping in touch.
Likewise. Thanks for having me.
Thanks.